Hey, Slapdawg! The Brainiacs are ready.
Welcome into Leather Brains episode 135. Today is Wednesday, October 4th, and I am your host, Slapdawg. I am joined today by my very good friend, Yeti. How have you been, man? How's fantasy football going for you? How's the NFL season going for you?
NFL season, I don't really want to talk about too much as a Raiders fan. Fantasy, though, we can talk about fantasy for days. I think that's what we're here to do. But I think for my personal teams, we're doing okay. We're staying afloat. Our league of record, I'm doing, middle of the pack, but I think I got screwed over by some matchups, this week.
It happens.
But
happens.
Let's help some people win their games this week, huh?
Well, yes, that's what we're here to do. We have a lot to talk about, as we do most episodes. I mean, that's usually what we're here to do, is to talk. And for those that are watching and or listening, that's what they're here for. So today we have the Monday night takeaways. So we got to do some cleanup on that Monday night game. There's a little bit of conversation that needs to happen there. And then I'm a little sad by what we're going to talk about today. And it's the first quarter review. So I want you to imagine you're in elementary school again. And the quarterly report card comes out.
Oh, shit.
And you got to bring it home to mom and dad. And you got to show them all your grades and how you're doing. That's kind of what this episode is going to be about, is we're bringing that report card home. Or we're mom and dad. We're getting the report card. So we're going to look it over. We're going to have some conversations about some fantasy relevant biggest winners and biggest losers so far this season. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. But it's kind of sad for me because we're a quarter of the way through the NFL already. This NFL season is already a quarter of the way done, which is so sad because we wait all year for this moment, for this time, and we're already a quarter of the way done. So I think the thing to take away from this is let's enjoy it. Let's embrace it. There's still plenty of football left to be played, but let's just recognize we're in the moment right now, and let's appreciate it for what it is. After that, we're going to do flex appeal. Got to do it. Love it. Sounds great. It's a little spicy. So we're going to bring some flex appeal, some flex options, and we're going to have some arguments and conversations and maybe agree on some things. Who knows? And then we're going to finish it with Brainbusters. So Yeti, let's start out with the Monday Night Football game. Seahawks win this one 24-3 from the Giants. Mm-hmm. Where do you want to start? Because this was an absolute shit show for the Giants.
Let's start with the Giants here. Just because I've seen a lot of overreaction to the Giants offense through the first 4 weeks. Obviously, we came into the season thinking Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll, they're a match made in heaven. Brian Daboll helped Josh Allen out so much. And we saw Daniel Jones transform into a Josh Allen light with his running upside last year, limited turnovers. So we were super hype on Daniel Jones and Darren Waller coming into the season, right? But my God, have they looked bad. And a lot of the blame, rightfully so, is put on the quarterback, right? But I don't think it's fair to put the whole blame on him. Because if you look at this Giants team, their starting offensive line is down 2 guys. Their left tackle and their right tackle have both been banged up. The left tackle has missed the past couple of weeks with an injury. The right tackle that they drafted last year in the top 10 has just not performed very well. And Daniel Jones is scrambling for his life, man. I looked at the numbers compared to other quarterbacks this year. Daniel Jones has been under pressure 79 times. That's the most in the NFL. Justin Fields is second with 73 pressures. So, I mean, Daniel Jones, last year he was a good fantasy quarterback, right? But we know in real life, he's an average quarterback. And when you have a guy running for his life, basically every play, you turn an average quarterback into a pretty bad quarterback. And I think that's what we're seeing so far this season.
Do you think it's fair to say that the Giants are screwed? Is that a fair question, or is that a fair statement? Like, if you're a Giants fan right now, do you really believe that is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Is there any optimism here? Obviously, like you mentioned, I just hit my microphone. They're down 2 offensive linemen, but you look at this entire situation, as you just mentioned, Daniel Jones is really kind of a middle of the pack quarterback. He's not anything special, but given the quarterback market right now, he just got paid, so he signed to a contract. So the Giants are pretty much stuck with Jones. There's really no offensive pieces here. There's an aging Darren Waller who really hasn't done anything and hasn't been that spark for that offense that most Giants fans and fantasy football players were hoping for. You have a lot of youthful young wide receivers, but none of them are a true wide receiver one, and none of them have taken a step towards excitement for the Giants offense. So are the Giants really just in a bad place here, do you think? And is there any optimism for Giants fans?
That's a loaded question, and I just want to first start by addressing Daniel Jones's contract. I think last year or this offseason when he got paid, they made a huge mistake, and that's not an overreaction based off the first 4 games. But if you look at who their best players are on that offense, it's Saquon Barkley, and then maybe Daniel Jones, right? I think they should have spent the bag on Saquon Barkley because he's not only a running back, but he's their best slot wide receiver. And they don't happen to have any elite wide receivers. Now, you kind of alluded to it with getting their young wide receivers involved, and they did so even more in this game versus Seattle. We saw Jalen Hyatt. He played the most snaps that he's played through 4 games so far with 45 snaps. Wan'Dale Robinson got involved a little more with 48 snaps. So they're trying to get these young guys going. But it's hard when the offensive line is not performing. And so right now, I think this is a perfect opportunity to buy low on this offense, to be honest with you. It's not all doom, right? I think there is going to be gloom at the end of the tunnel here. They just need to get their pieces back. And Saquon Barkley, when he comes back, he's going to elevate that offense. He's not going to be, the problem solver to everything, but he's going to be a huge relief for Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones likes to dump off to Saquon. So I think there is some light coming up, if their line gets figured out, if it gets healthy, but you just got to ride the wave for now, Giants fans.
Okay, well, let's look at the other side of this coin here. Let's look at the Seahawks very, very quickly. Geno Smith, for fantasy purposes, is certainly not anything to get excited about. And this team is, you look at the wide receivers, they're Lockett and DK are still there, but they're not doing anything incredible right now either. And partially that could be Geno's fault. But Kenneth Walker looks like he might be a mainstay here, and I think maybe the Charbonnet owners and the people who were concerned with that maybe shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think the rumors of Kenneth Walker's demise were greatly exaggerated this year. Coming into the offseason, we were saying, they drafted Zach Charbonnet in the 3rd round, so we kind of expected a workload, right? But Kenneth Walker, he's been the workhorse back for Seattle. And so far on the season, he's an RB5 in PPR leagues. So, there's no indication to me that Kenneth Walker is going to lose snaps. He's performing at a high level from last year even. So I think, people who drafted Kenneth Walker late this year, those teams better be, they should be top in your leagues right now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, there's a fly flying around and it keeps landing on my head and it's just pissing me off.
You're like a squirrel right now.
I don't know. It sucks owning Metcalf and Lockett right now, and they're kind of flex. Metcalf is a wide receiver 2 at the moment. Like, that's truly what he is for fantasy purposes, a wide receiver 20. So, but Lockett, certainly not anything to write home about, and their rookie JSN is not looking great either. So, it's a little frustrating, but it is what it is for fantasy purposes. I think Kenneth Walker is definitely the guy I'd want to own for them. So.
Yeah, and my question to you about the Seattle team is, fantasy aside, do you think this team is capable of going to the wild card? Are they a legit wild card contender?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, and one that I don't think so. I don't think so. I look at this schedule. You got the Bengals after this bye week here this week, and then Arizona, which hopefully they will win. Browns, Ravens, Rams, 49ers, Dallas, 49ers, Eagles. there's a really good chance they get their ass kicked here in the middle of this season. So I'm going to go with no. I mean, the 49ers are running this division. They're going to run this division. And I don't even know if a wild card push, given how difficult of a schedule they have, is within the realm of possibility for them at this moment.
Yeah, I think their defense has been pretty good thus far, and they're getting their 2 cornerbacks back. They came back Monday night actually, and they looked pretty good, but they're getting back into game speed, obviously. And so I'm not saying they're going to be a smash team, but I think that defense is starting to gel. They're starting to come together. And I look at the other NFC teams, and I'm kind of curious who is going to be the wild card teams there, because you have the 2 top teams in the NFC East and the Cowboys and the Eagles. The NFC West, we know the 49ers are going to run it. NFC North, man, that's going to be a shit show, and I really doubt a wild card is going to come out of that division. And then we have the NFC South, which I don't think we really need to dive into. So
I think if anything, it's going to be the East. I mean, obviously the Lions are going to win it all in the North. That's no surprise. I mean, the North, even there's contention there too, right? I mean, like if are the Vikings going to turn this around? That's a conversation that I think a lot of people are really curious to know. Is that offense, or not offense, but their defense really going to step it up? Because their offense is typically keeping them in games. It's their defense that's really making them struggle. The Lions, I'm a homer for Dan Campbell, and I do think that they are very good. And then the Packers even are really good. So that's a difficult. Jordan Love is not a bad quarterback. I don't think the Packers are. I'd probably put them third on that list for the NFC North, and obviously the Bears in last. The East is, I mean, the Cowboys and Eagles right now are frisky. They are, and I think the East is certainly going to earn a wild card spot. Given this conversation, I really do think the Rams and the 49ers are the 2 best in the West at the moment. So, and I didn't mean to rhyme that, but I did, and I feel like a badass for doing it. So
I think you picked the wrong career. Like, you should be a rapper.
I agree.
Like Lil Dicky-esque.
Yeah, except I have a really big dicky. All right, so let's go talk about these Yeti. It's the first round of bye weeks, buddy. So we got to talk about bye weeks because they are here. This is the first round of them. I'm going to name a couple teams here. These players are probably in lineups for some people, so you need to go make sure that they are not in your starting lineup because they're not playing this week. First and foremost, Seattle, the team we just talked about. They are on bye this week, as well as the Cleveland Browns, Los Angeles Chargers, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if you have anybody starting in any of those games, and I'm sure most people probably do, go pull them out because you need to go look for replacements. We'll kind of cover some flex appeal options that are certainly some conversational points for all of you playing fantasy football a little bit later here in this episode. So stay tuned because that could be a very important conversation for your starts and sits this week. But before we get into that, we have the first quarter review, as I mentioned earlier. So let's just start this one out, buddy. The biggest winners is what we're going to cover first here. So this first group of players is the biggest winners for the first quarter review for fantasy football. So Puka Nacua and Kyren Williams. They are. Who would have thought? These are both waiver wire ads, Yeti. These are both guys that before this season started, most people probably hadn't even really heard of. And they're killing it.
Yeah. Puka was one of those guys that I had kind of heard about, just because we play dynasty football and, we take shots in our rookie drafts, right? But my God, I don't think anybody expected a top 5 performance through the first 4 weeks. And if you got him in your redraft leagues, you also should be at the top of your leagues, right? But my goodness, like he came into the league, he's leading the league with 52 targets, 501 receiving yards, and he only has 1 touchdown, which is crazy that he's a wide receiver 5
with 1 touchdown
on the season. Sorry, with 1 touchdown. And then you have Kyren Williams, who somehow he outlasted Cam Akers. I don't know if Cam Akers banged, Sean McVay's wife again.
That's the rumor that was going around.
It must be, man.
Don't sleep with Sean McVay's wife.
Yeah. But he's turned on the Jets here, and I mean, all of his efficiency numbers look great so far. He's getting a lot of yak. He's breaking tackles. He looks good.
He's RB3 on the season.
Workload. Yeah.
He's RB3 on the season. You have a running back for one team that is the RB3, and you also have a top 4 wide receiver for PPR formats. He's number 4, and they're both coming out of the same team. That is impressive even of itself. And that's something I think when you really have this conversation, the first quarter review, Puka Nacua and Kyren Williams are certainly eating. I think you have to give some kudos out to Matt Stafford, because Matt Stafford is throwing the ball a shit ton, and he's doing it pretty well. These guys both have tremendous PPR value, like you just mentioned. Puka's wide receiver 4 on the season with only 1 touchdown, and that goes to show how much Sean McVay wants to throw the ball, and it goes to show how effective Matt Stafford is at throwing the ball, because Kyren Williams also has that PPR value, and he is catching the ball out of the backfield, and he is on the field 100% of the time right now. So you got to kind of tip your hat to this entire offense, and I think a lot of people kind of wrote this offense off because Matt Stafford was coming back from an injury, Cooper Kupp was coming back from an injury, and I think most people were not really expecting much from this team, and for fantasy purposes, they're getting it done right now.
Who would have thought that your starting quarterback and your, 3 of your offensive line being out last year would hurt your offense, right? And here we are, the Rams offense looks like they did when they were in the Super Bowl, right? They look pretty explosive at this point. And like you said, it's largely to do with Matthew Stafford and the offensive line being back. My one thing with Puka, obviously, big talking point. Everybody's talking about it. What do you do now with Cooper Kupp coming off the IR? And so I took to Twitter. I took to our Brainiacs, and I asked a question. What are you all doing with Puka Nacua now that Cooper Kupp is off the IR? Gave them 3 options. Are you holding Puka? Have you traded, or are you looking to trade Puka? Or are you crying a bit inside? 60% of the votes went to holding Puka, which I think is a correct answer here. So Slaps, I pose the same question to you. What are you doing with Puka Nacua if you have him?
I only have him in a dynasty league, and it's because I'm really glad that I made that trade. It was, at the time, he was still doing really well, but it was a week previous when he kind of had a bum week, so to speak, and there was still some concerns. Dynasty, I love it. I'm eating it up. I think the biggest concern for Dynasty people is what's going on. Is Matt Stafford going to be in the picture long term? And that's the question that I think a lot of people really need to be thinking about for Dynasty. I was okay purchasing him for what I did, but I blanket statement that because you have to be thinking about that, right? For redraft formats, I'm all in, baby. I am all in on Puka, because while Cooper Kupp, he did come off the IR today, and the 21-day window has now opened for him to return to play. That's great. We don't root for injury here, and I like that. But it very evidently, there is still some concern here, right? Like, even with him coming back, you hope he's healthy, you think he's healthy, but this was an injury that he sustained last season, and here we are the following season, and it's still following him in this. So very clearly, it's lingering. That is somewhat of a concern, and I'm going to tell you this, Yeti. I do think Puka's value, I think his fantasy performance with Cooper Kupp on the field dwindles a little bit. I really do. That's to be expected, because Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp, the connection there and the hyper-targeting that he does for Cooper Kupp has been immense. With Cooper Kupp back on the field, Puka's value still goes down, but I also think that's great, because now you have 2 incredible wide receivers on the field who are going to pull coverage, who are going to be really difficult to cover and scheme for defenses. That creates opportunity. When Cooper Kupp's on the field, defenses have to be aware of that, right? So Puka's getting all this usage right now, which is great. I expect it to go down a little bit, but that doesn't concern me enough to try and sell him at the moment. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I think both of their volume is going to go down a little bit, and that is okay. I don't think it's going to necessarily hurt either of them. With Puka Nacua, I think he's still your wide receiver 2, and on a given week, he has wide receiver 1 upside. Cooper Kupp, he's going to be your wide receiver 1, and I think he has that safe floor. They're both very good route runners. Cooper Kupp, he's going to eat because Puka is going to get coverage. So Cooper Kupp might get more one-on-ones, which is great for him. But because not only is he a target hog, he's an elite route runner. That's why he got paid. So I think this can only benefit the both of them.
I agree, and I'm excited. I think that a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do with him. I don't hate the idea of selling Puka high. I get it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you don't do that, because a lot of these conversations are based around your team needs. If you struck gold and you picked up Puka off the waiver wire in week 2, you're really happy that you did. And if your team is looking just fine and you're winning games and you have the running backs and you have the wide receivers and Puka was a flex consideration for you and still is, you're eating really pretty. But if you're desperately, like, if you're holding on to, like, Travis Etienne and Najee Harris as your 2 running backs, then yeah, you probably kind of want to start exploring some different options to try and strengthen your backfield. So everything is based on team makeup right now. So I don't hate the idea of selling him, and I'm not going to tell you to sell him. But if I was an owner and I had enough stability within my team, I'm going to hold him, and that's where I'm at. Let's move over to Anthony Richardson. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson. He is certainly, he's looking great. He's not the only rookie quarterback that's looking great, but he is one of those ones. He's not the worst rookie quarterback right now. That would be Bryce Young, right? So Anthony Richardson, he's got the rushing upside that a lot of people were optimistic about. And Yeti, I'm going to tell you this as well. He looks good throwing the ball, man. He really does. He's not making a lot of mistakes throwing the ball like a lot of people had concerns with when he was in college and moving up. It's crazy what happens when you play with NFL wide receivers who have a lot of skill. But he's looking great. He's paired with Shane Steichen, who is Jalen Hurts' offensive coordinator, and kind of helped turn the ship with Jalen Hurts. And he looks like he's really doing right by Anthony Richardson here. What do you think?
Yeah, and I want to give a big shout out to Shane Steichen here because he's making Anthony Richardson look good. Like I don't want to say he's making him look good, but he's given him the right tools. He's given them the right game plans to perform at a high level, and he is performing at a high level, not only with his legs, but his arm. Like you said, they're getting him out on a lot of rollouts, which is great. They're giving him easy reads with Michael Pittman, which is obviously Michael Pittman he's a very good pass catcher. He's good at what he does. Right. So I can't emphasize how well of a job Shane Steichen is doing thus far.
I mean, projecting him at end of season, is Richardson a pretty safe start for you for fantasy at this point? Like, obviously matchups come into consideration, and Richardson was one of those quarterbacks who was being drafted somewhat late in fantasy football. Can you comfortably just set and forget him as a starter at this point, just given the rushing upside that he provides?
When he's averaging 43 rushing yards a game, that provides you a very safe floor. Right. That gives you, an extra 4 points on top of whatever he can produce with his arm. So on a weekly basis, you're probably looking at a 16-point floor with massive upside, given he scores on the goal line. Right. So I think he
has a rushing touchdown in every game he's played in.
Exactly.
He has at least one rushing touchdown in every starting game. Obviously, he had a concussion against Houston. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game, and it wasn't even the first half yet. And then obviously he got a concussion. He was out the rest of that game, and then he was out for the Ravens game. So he's had 10 rushing attempts, and 3 in his concussion game. They're very clearly, they're not afraid to run the ball with him. They want to run the ball with him, and he's effective at running the ball. So I think for me, he's comfortably a start. He's somebody that, and just looking at their schedule, they don't have a ton of difficult opponents. Like, they have winnable games. The Colts could be kind of a frisky wild card, if you will. Like, they're an interesting team. I'm comfortable starting Anthony Richardson on a weekly basis, and I'm really impressed with this kid thus far.
And I'll even go out on a limb and I'll say he's matchup proof at this point because of his rushing upside. If you want to put him against the best defense, okay, what are they going to do? They're going to load the box and they're going to force him to throw. Okay, well, when he completes 4 or 5 of those passes in a row, he proves that he can throw the ball. He's going to take off and run whenever he can. So he's kind of like a Justin Fields at this point.
Yeah.
Justin Fields
but probably
year, I should say.
Thank you. And also I think he's throwing the ball better than Fields is. So, and that there's a whole conversation in and of itself there. Is it Fields' coaching? Is it Fields' ability? I don't want to get into that, but because it's its own conversation. But I think Shane Steichen is doing a great job with this kid, and I'm excited for the future for him, as well as, let's just point out, John Taylor's going to be back. Now, what does that look like for this team? We don't know, because there's still a lot of rumors going around that Jonathan Tate, he wants to be traded. He doesn't want to play for this team. There's a lot of frustration there. The drama is still going to continue. However, Jonathan Taylor did come off the PUP today. His 21-day window is activated. He was at practice today, so he's expected to be ready to go for week 5. Let's see if it happens. And let's see what this offense looks like with two very talented rushing people in that backfield. And that's what I'm really interested to see. I don't know if Taylor's a start this week for me, just because he's still got to relearn a lot of. I mean, he has a new offensive coordinator. This is a new offense. He hasn't been able to mesh with the group one yet, and then you have the drama stuff on top of it. So I don't know if I'm starting Taylor this week, but worth watching and monitoring. Tight end Sam Laporta for the Lions.
Another young guy.
Tight end baby. He came from there, and he has certainly proven why he was utilized in Iowa and drafted here, because he's looking wonderful. It shows why the Lions traded TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings, and I think they got a really, really good young rookie wide receiver in Sam Laporta. He's looking wonderful, Yeti. He's looking incredible.
Yeah, it's almost like if your name isn't Noah Fant and you come and play at Iowa as a tight end, like you're going to be an elite NFL tight end at this point, because Sam Laporta, all he's done in the first 4 weeks is he's put up tight end 4 numbers. He was probably a waiver wire ad for a lot of people, which, rightfully so, right? He's a rookie trying to prove his role, but he's demanded a 28% target share in this offense, man. That doesn't just happen by chance. Like, he's getting involved, he's getting plays drawn up for him, and he's performing at a high level with Jared Goff already as a rookie.
Yeah, Sam Laporta throughout 4 weeks has a 20.6% target share. He's looking incredible. I want to say he is tight end 2 on the season, I believe. Yep, he's tight end 2 on the season.
Yep, sorry, I messed that up.
Oh, that's good. And I mean, he's looking great. The only person who's ahead of him is TJ Hawkinson, and it's not by a big margin. So, congratulations to Sam Laporta. Even bigger congratulations to the big brain Danny Campbell and the Lions. They knew what they were doing drafting this guy, and I'm excited for this to continue. Sam Laporta's doing great. He's a tight end that I don't think you're going to be able to pry away from opponents, because they're certainly getting the value out of that position, and that's hard to do. But I'm excited to watch them continue. I'm also excited for the Texans, Yeti. I'm excited for the Texans,
your
which
ex,
is
man.
Yeah, my ex, my old lover, so to speak. They look good, Yeti. I mean, they look good. There's nothing else to say. CJ Stroud looks great. These rookie wide receivers, Tank Dell and Nico Collins isn't a rookie, but he's a young wide receiver. They're looking wonderful. This team is looking great, man. I mean, who would have thought? I'm going to be completely honest. I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I'll pull out the receipts on both of us. I think we were completely out on this offense. Like, aside from, I had flirted with Nico Collins a little bit. I put little sliders in his DMs to see if he wanted to join my fantasy team. But other than that, like, we kind of wrote this offense off, including Dameon Pierce. Like, I know we didn't list him here in our biggest winners, but I also think he's a huge winner, because a lot of people wrote him off as well. But he's performing with RB2 numbers, and he doesn't even have a rushing touchdown at this point, which is insane to think about. But Nico Collins and Tank Dell, these two guys, you probably got off waiver wire. Tank Dell, he is currently the wide receiver 23 at this point. Nico Collins, a wide receiver 7, at this point. If you got either of these guys, you're happy. It's just kind of frustrating, because you don't know which one is going to go off. It seems like they kind of take turns,
that's the game that you play, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because there are a lot of people that picked up Nico Collins off the waiver wire because he had a great couple weeks, and then they started him, and then they got almost nothing because Tank Dell came out of nowhere. And now the question becomes, are they both able to live with each other for fantasy football? Are they both able to coincide in a world in which they both get fantasy football points? That is yet to be determined, because it hasn't happened yet. So I think I'd be willing to take the dart throw and put him in a flex right now, because someone is going to eat in that offense. CJ Stroud is looking freaking great. He's looking probably like the best rookie quarterback in this group right now. He's throwing the ball often. He's throwing the ball accurately. He hasn't thrown a pick at all. He's broken a bunch of rookie quarterback records, and he looks comfortable back there. He looks like he is in command of this offense. He looks like he has garnered the respect of his teammates as well as defenses, and he's doing really well. I have nothing but good things to say about Stroud thus far. I'm very, very impressed.
And when a team has thrown the ball 28 times with a rookie, that shows you how confident they are in his arm and his ability at this point. And also, with 38 pass attempts a game, that gives a lot of volume for guys like Nico Collins and Tank Dell. So, if you're wondering, like, are these guys weekly starts? I think it's going to obviously be matchup dependent. I do think Nico Collins is a one that could be a every week start for you at this point. Like, he's a top 10 wide receiver. Obviously, you're going to play him. But I think it's really going to come down to, are they playing, the Jets, who have an elite secondary? Who are they playing type of thing for me.
I mean, what about CJ Stroud? There's been a lot of conversation about Joey Ice, and he is certainly should be on ice because he is not looking good. And we're not starting him for fantasy. I mean, I had this conversation with both Scotty and Alan on last episode. Like, you're benching Joe Burrow. You're not playing him right now. I don't think he's worth a drop necessarily. But like, is CJ Stroud one of those guys where you'd be comfortable throwing into your lineup and feeling comfortable doing that as somebody who you probably could get and or at one point could get off the waiver wires?
Yeah, aside from the matchup with the Jets and Tampa Bay that they have coming up later this season, I'd feel comfortable rolling out CJ Stroud because not only is he performing at a high level, but the game scripts are probably going to be in his favor most of the time.
Mm-hmm. He's doing great. Like I said earlier, I don't know if there's much more I need to say. I'm happy for the Texans. I'm sad as somebody who was once a Texans fan to let that era go without me on that train, but I am excited for them. I wish them the best. I want them to be good. So I'm rooting for them.
I'm going to hop on the Taylor Swift train for a second and say that you're the problem here. It's you.
I think you're probably right, but the guy I brought into the table certainly is not the problem, and that would be a hometown hero of mine for the Cardinals, James Conner. I just wanted to bring him up very, very quickly here. I don't think we need to have a full breakdown on James Conner, but I just wanted to say he is certainly doing really well, man. I mean, he has proven that he is, I'm going to put a little asterisk here, almost quarterback dependent. He had a poor week against a very, very difficult San Francisco defense, but James Conner is looking matchup proof. Allen alluded to it. Allen had said this, and James Conner was somebody that you were not drafting in the 5th round. He was like a 7th round flyer for some reason, and I would be ecstatic if I got the value that he is providing at that round. The Cardinals aren't good. We're not good. We're frisky. We're kind of fun. We're teetering with the edge of like maybe one day we could be something. Not right now. But James Conner was certainly usable. He is running back 14 on the season, and that is only because of a poor performance last week. Other than that, he has done very, very well. I like James Conner and anybody who drafted him. I wanted to point it out as somebody in the 7th round, you're getting great value out of him. So that was it. We're going to move over to the bad side of the report card, the failing grades, the people and or teams that we need to lock in their room and ground because they are playing too many video games and not studying hard enough. You could probably throw Kyler Murray in there, but that's not who we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Bengals offense to start this one because this is a very sore subject. This is a huge talking point. Before we go to the Bengals, I want to say anybody who is watching us live, greatly do appreciate it. If you have any questions, because these questions are starting to flow in, we will answer them at the end of the show here. So keep them coming. Whatever you got, we will answer them at the end and greatly appreciate it. While you're here, hit subscribe. We do appreciate it. All right, back to the Bengals. This sucks. This sucks, Yeti. This is terrible. This is not fun. This is not a good time. I drafted Jamar Chase. I own some shares of him, and I'm pissed off. And I think I have a right to be a little upset about this because nothing really has changed on this offense from a personnel standpoint. Not much has changed. Still the same coordinator. Still have all the same receivers. Have Joe Burrow. I think their O-line is pretty much the same. You have the same running back. But what is different about this team is Joe Burrow does not look like Joe Burrow of the last 2 years, and it is frustrating. What do you think?
Yeah, man, we talk about this being kind of a report card session, and if I'm the parents of any of the Bengals owners, I'm not giving them any money to the book fair because this team is looking like they're hungover from the playoffs from the past couple of years. They had all the highs, and I think they're finally riding that low. Now, obviously, I'm not saying it's all mental here because there are a lot of issues, and it starts with Joe Burrow. But it's hard to imagine this team, who was one of the most explosive offenses in the league, go from that to what we're seeing this year, and to the point where they've only had 3 offensive touchdowns, which is last in the NFL, even behind the Jets. If we look at the Bengals, they are averaging 12.3 points a game. That is second last to the Giants. What are we doing here? And I'm going to go off here and I'm going to say the Bengals need to look at sitting Burrow. And at that point, I think their season is a wrap. And they start trading off guys like T. Higgins.
T. Higgins, and I'm glad you brought that up because this is a point of conversation. T. Higgins, this is last year of his contract, not looking like they're going to have enough cap space to re-sign him, and I think they've already kind of probably had that conversation with him saying, hey, this is your last year. So maybe they do trade him off. Maybe they trade him off for assets right now because it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs at this point. Joe Burrow doesn't look like he's healthy, and this offense looks like it's struggling. So sell your assets now while you can to look towards the future. I think that's within the realm of possibility, and there are teams out there that will buy him.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs come to mind. Chiefs need a wide receiver really bad. They desperately
Chiefs need one. The Panthers have came out and
Panthers-
said that they want to get an asset for Bryce Young because they're all in on Bryce and they want to make sure that he has the weapons.
Because they said they wanted a wide receiver 1, but they took their wide receiver 1 that they had and they sent him off to get Bryce Young. So I don't know what they do from here, but it is. I think you're probably right. I think you like very clearly that calf is a problem for Joe Burrow. It's a problem for this offense, and it sucks. And you know what the worst part is, Yeti? Anybody, if you own T. Higgins, you can bench him. I think that's fair to say. Like, you can bench T. Higgins for fantasy football. You set him there, and you say maybe one day you and I can hang out again. But right now, you're not getting it done for me. The problem is for Jamar Chase owners because you can't bench Jamar Chase. I mean, you can't bench Jamar Chase. He's currently, right now, he is wide receiver, what is it? Wide receiver 21. So he still has wide receiver 2 value, which is insane to say. But his floor so far this season is 8 points, and his ceiling is 26 points. So you don't know what you're going to get from him. I think you have to start Jamar Chase. But aside from that, I don't think I'd really start any of this offense, to be honest. I mean, Joe Mixon, potentially, he's RB20, and you drafted him, he's an RB2. But that's about where I'm at. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, so I have the script right here in front of me for the NFL.
Oh, shit, you got that?
On it, yeah, it's right here. Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
What are you seeing?
Straight from Roger Goodell's office.
Some bitch.
So what's going to happen is the Bengals are going to suddenly lose to Arizona this week. And from that is going to draw even more conversations of should Joe Burrow even be on the field. At that point, I think their hand is going to be kind of forced, and they're going to bench Joe Burrow. And they're going to slowly, just dwindle off throughout the season, lose their games, and they're going to have a top 10 pick next year. So with that being said, they're going to try to trade off T. Higgins. They're going to get, a third-round pick or a fourth-round pick, whatever it is for T. Higgins, because he's not coming back. Let's be honest.
Yep.
They're going to have a top 10 pick. Marvin Harrison Jr.
I was just going to say that.
Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow.
I'm in.
That would be a nasty squad, man.
They're doing it on purpose. Joe's like limping around. He's fine. His calf's okay.
At what point do you say, fuck this season, let's worry about our future? Because you just signed Joe Burrow to a 5-year deal. We need him healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I said the same thing, I think, on last episode. Like,
you did.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Thank you. You just spent a shit ton of money on your franchise guy. Let's maybe set him down and say, hey, look, man, it ain't in the cards. Let's get you healthy. I mean, I think that's kind of what the Cardinals are doing right now with Kyler Murray. Like, Kyler Murray is making good progress. I think he's coming off the pup window, but he's still going to be a couple weeks. And, like, why rush it back? Like, the Cardinals aren't going to do anything this year.
Especially when you have Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, I know. It's ironically enough, he's not looking terrible. They're not great, but he's looking okay for a backup guy. He's getting it done. So, people who weren't getting it done, the Giants' entire offense, we kind of talked about them earlier. They're not getting it done. And I don't want to sit here and blame Daniel Jones. I don't think that's fair. And Micah Parsons on his podcast even came out, and there's some pictures floating around saying, you guys want to blame Daniel Jones? Look at this. It's his offensive line, and 3 different defensive linemen are converging as he's still taking his drop back. So he hasn't even finished his drop back yet to read the field, and 3 defensive linemen are about to just destroy him. So I don't think it's fair to fully blame Daniel Jones. Do you want to blame him for a little bit? Fine, you can. But to sit there and say this is all on him is not a fair statement. You take any other quarterback and you put him in that situation, you're probably going to get very similar results because that offensive line is terrible. His pass catchers are not helping him whatsoever. He's got 2 young guys who aren't really doing it, and then an aging tight end. It's Saquon Barkley or bust, and that's been the Giants' mantra the last couple years, kind of like the Titans. It's Derrick Henry or bust, and the Giants are kind of living through a very similar situation at the moment. So,
and unfortunately for Saquon, I don't even think he's going to benefit from coming back because this offensive line is so bad. Yeah. You know, none of their starters. I'm just over here looking at PFF's grades for their linemen. None of them are above a 58% or 58% grade, which is obviously a huge problem.
It's like you and me going out there and playing O-line.
I think we could do better at this point.
Sign me up
for at least a play, right?
Yeah, I'd do it. Pay me $1 million. I'll go get
cut block everybody
by Michael Parsons, whatever. Yeah, and the thing is you got to bench most of this team. The only one that I think you could probably argue to stay in your lineup, obviously Saquon Barkley because he's Saquon Barkley. The only other one at this point, probably Darren Waller because the tight end decision or the tight end room for fantasy football is just a shit show at all times. We got a post coming out tomorrow. So if you're not following us on Instagram or Twitter, you should probably do that because there's some interesting information about tight ends that is a post that is a brewing that I think you're going to find interesting. But there's no optimism. I'm fine buying low, but that doesn't mean start them. If you want to go roster some of them, fine, do that, but don't play them because you're not going to get any value out of them at this moment. So other people you're not getting value out of, good old Gibby, Jamar Gibbs. Rookie running back for the Lions. This is where Scotty has a little bit of hatred for Dan Campbell, among other hatred reasons to hate Dan Campbell. I don't know why. I love the guy. I think he's crazy. I think he's awesome. But Scotty, the interesting thing with Scotty is he keeps going back to the well. He keeps drinking the same Kool-Aid where he drafts DeAndre Swift and then he does nothing, and then he gets mad at Dan Campbell, and then he went back to the well and he drafted Jahmyr Gibbs and or traded for him in some leagues and then gets pissed because he's getting the same results. I understand the frustration. I do. I'm giving Scotty crap because Jahmyr Gibbs looks like the best running back for this team. And so did DeAndre Swift. So I don't know if Dan Campbell is doing it to protect Jahmyr Gibbs because what he's doing is letting David Montgomery get all the goal line work, which sucks for Jahmyr Gibbs owners because that's where the money's at. But perhaps it's to try and protect Gibbs. I don't know. I mean, what do you own Jahmyr Gibbs? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, I own Jahmyr Gibbs in our Dynasty League, and I was super high on Gibbs. I thought he had running back 1 upside every week in this offense, and I thought Dan Campbell would commit to 1 back. You know, slap on my wrist for me thinking that, right? But I had to take a step back because after the Green Bay game on Thursday night, I was kind of in Scotty's same situation of I hate Dan Campbell. What the fuck is this guy doing to running backs? But I think it has a lot to do with Jahmyr Gibbs being a rookie. And not only do running backs in this league have an obligation to, or a responsibility to get yards, right? They have a responsibility of protecting the quarterback. And I think that is why we are not seeing Jahmyr Gibbs on the field as much as David Montgomery. Montgomery is a good pass blocking running back when they need him in there. And he's a proven vet, right? He's going to get the job done, and he's a big body guy that can get the work done at the red zone, which is obviously going to earn you more playing time. If you can block, and if you're a bigger guy, great. Jahmyr Gibbs, unfortunately, he's still a rookie. He's still trying to figure out all the run blocking or pass blocking that he needs, and I think it's showing a little bit. At this point, if you own Jahmyr Gibbs, you're just hoping that he breaks like a 60-yard run.
Do you try and trade him? Trade him away?
In a redraft?
Yeah.
If you can, but I think everybody's in the same situation of, yeah, I'll buy low on Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think you're going to get the complete value.
Sure. No, I tend to agree with you there. Like, I don't want Gibbs because I don't want to deal with the frustration. It's kind of a similar conversation that you could have with owning Alexander Mattison, especially with Cam Akers starting to get more involved. So on a worse offense at this point, or running offense rather. So like there's there's a lot of question marks there. It sucks for Gibbs owners. He was like a second round guy is kind of where he was at for redraft purposes, if memory
second,
serves.
third round. Yep.
Yeah, so like you either drafted him as your RB1 or your RB2, you got him early, and you're just not getting that value out of him, and it sucks. It really does suck, and I feel bad for anybody that drafted Gibbs, unless I'm going against you, because then I'm kind of happy that you drafted him. But truthfully, it does suck, and I don't hate Dan Campbell. I love Dan Campbell. I love the Lions. I'm all in on him this year, and I like the success that they're finding. I just don't like the fact that it's not also getting you fantasy points for Gibbs. Other people that are sucking right now, Yeti. DeAndre Hopkins. I was actually pretty freaking excited for Hopkins because Hopkins is a generational wide receiver. There's a couple issues, I think, with Hopkins, and I think the overarching issue is this Titans offense looks terrible. Ryan Tannehill looks absolutely awful. This is the worst football I have seen him play since the middle of the A.J. Brown era. It is not a good look for Ryan Tannehill, and very clearly the Titans have shown that they kind of want to move on from him because they keep grabbing these like low-hanging fruit quarterbacks who are like, well, he's here, let's try him, and then it doesn't seem like it's working for them. They have Malik Willis, they have the other quarterback whose name is currently escaping me.
Will
Levis, thank you. And it's not that we haven't seen him on the field. We have no idea what they're capable of. I mean, we kind of saw a sprinkle of Levis last season, but what do we do? Like, what DeAndre Hopkins is awful because not only is Ryan Tannehill bad and this offense is bad, he's also getting old. DeAndre Hopkins is 31 years old. And while he still has some juice left to squeeze, I do believe that. I thought he was going to kind of be A.J. Brown. I thought he was going to be the A.J. Brown for this offense and kind of help them and elevate them in that wide receiver level because very clearly Treylon Burks he's not A.J. Brown either. You know what I mean? And so Hopkins was like a fourth round wide receiver. There was a lot of optimism from me because this team hasn't changed a whole lot, and he kind of goes in and can fill in that Brown role, and he's not. He's just not.
And I'm glad that you brought up Treylon Burks here because I think defenses are able to key in on DeAndre Hopkins even more because the Titans don't have another option or another weapon aside from Derrick Henry. So they can put double coverage on DeAndre and say, okay, we're good on that side. And it's not like DeAndre Hopkins is, I hate to say this, but he's past his prime at this point. And unfortunately, he's playing with Ryan Tannehill, and that offense isn't getting it done. I think we're getting to the point in the season where, we're still focusing on where we drafted these guys, but we got to start letting some of that go. And that's especially the case with DeAndre Hopkins.
I agree. And, I'm not starting him. You can't start him. I think there's other waiver wire people that have a higher ceiling than Hopkins. Next up here on the first quarter review, Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Let's just have we're going to have a moment of silence for our fallen heroes here, London and Pitts. Thank you for being
Bless
on our
you.
waiver. Or thank you.
Whoever sneezed.
Yeah, sorry about that. They're done. I'm done with them. I'm done with them. I'm done dealing with this. I've said it last episode. Drop Kyle Pitts. You don't need him. Everybody is, and I don't want to be a broken record here. Everyone is so encapsulated by the name Kyle Pitts. They're encapsulated by the size and the speed and the talent that is Kyle Pitts. But at the end of the day, he is not getting it done for fantasy football. You can find better value sitting on the waiver wire because Pitts is doing nothing for your team other than the cool name that is Kyle Pitts. He's not getting it done. Drop him. Go find a tight end. Drake London, wide receiver 1 for the Falcons. Also not getting it done. Both of these gentlemen are very, very athletic, talented, gifted people, but they're playing with Desmond Ridder on a run-first team. Bench them. Drop them. Move on. Do you have anything else to add?
So you're kind of covering them in a redraft status or format, right?
Yes. Not in a dynasty because
I know.
I think better things are to come for them.
But if you own them in a dynasty league, let's say you own Drake London in a dynasty league.
Okay.
Obviously, you have to hold on to him, but
yeah,
when are you starting him? Or like, what is it going to take for you to be like, okay, Drake London is consistent. I'm going to play him. Is it going to be a quarterback change? Is it going to be offensive coordinator change? Like, what
Perhaps
does
both
it for you?
Perhaps at least one or the other. Arthur Smith they like to run the ball, and I ran some numbers, and I don't know if a tweet came out or not, but I was sitting there. I like running numbers and kind of scheming things. The running backs are seeing the same target share that Kyle Pitts or that Drake London has seen. The running backs are seeing the same target share. So you start to look at that. That becomes a big problem for fantasy. I mean, obviously they drafted Bijan Robinson and they want to show that he is good. I mean, he's a very good playmaker for them, but I don't want to start them because Drake London, he's wide receiver 52 on the year. He's not even a starting wide receiver. He's not, like, for fantasy. And so, yes, he had a great week 2 where he put up 18 points, and then he finally put up 11 points this week. He didn't do anything week 1, and he barely did anything week 3. It's gross. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with the headache. And I think more than anything else, I'm waiting until a quarterback change happens, if that happens. And I don't know if it will.
Yeah, and even if it does, I know Taylor Heineke is probably better than Desmond Ridder. But let's be honest, like, Taylor Heineke is a backup in this league for a reason.
Exactly.
He's not going to be he's not going to be a saving grace for this offense. Like, they're still going to run the fuck out of the ball. And I think the only thing that is really going to excite me about Drake London and Kyle Pitts moving forward is if they get a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive philosophy. Because if not, we're going to see them run the ball 60% of the time.
Which is what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, that's what they're doing right now. But the question is it Drake London or is it the offensive coordinator? Or not Drake London. Is it Desmond Ridder or is it the offensive coordinator? Or is it a mix of both? Will Desmond Ridder take the steps forward needed to be a usable starting quarterback in the NFL to get production for these two gentlemen? Or have we kind of seen all that there is left to see and they just need to move on and get a quarterback?
I think they just need to move on and change quarterbacks.
Let me propose this to you. This is in living in Slapdawg's fantasy land.
That's pretty in here. I like it. I can see it.
Decorate. Yeah. It took a long time. There's a lot
Kyler
of decorating.
Murray posters everywhere.
Well, I'd like to rip those off the wall and give them to the Falcons.
Oh, okay.
What if the Falcons trade for Kyler Murray? What if? I mean, we're talking about what if possibilities. What quarterbacks in this league do a franchise want to hold on to? Very obviously, the quarterback market is scarce because you look at someone like Daniel Jones, who just got paid quite a bit of money while he's a middle-of-the-pack quarterback. Kyler Murray does have a lot of upside to him. He can throw the ball pretty well. Before his leg injury, he was rushing the ball very well. This offense likes to run the ball. You get both Algier and Bijan Robinson back there. Kyler Murray then becomes a very dual-threat quarterback for this offense, and I think it would look really pretty. Do they actually trade for him? I don't know, because his price tag is going to be really high. But the Cardinals, you think about it like this. We brought in a new head coach. We brought in a new system. We brought in a bunch of new people. Kyler Murray is part of the old guard, so to speak. He's coming back from injury. We potentially have the number 1 pick in this upcoming draft where we could look to grab a new quarterback. So the conversation becomes, is Kyler Murray for sale? Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I just wanted to have this little idea of a conversation because what if? If you took Kyler Murray and you put him on the Falcons, they instantly get a shit ton better.
Yes.
Period.
I would agree. And I know we're kind of straying away from Drake London and Kyle Pitts a little bit, but I'm very curious to see what Arizona does because let's say they do own a top 2, top 3 pick and they still have Kyler Murray on their roster. What do you do? Like, are you just waiting for the highest bid for one of those guys, whether it's Kyler Murray or the opportunity to get Caleb Williams or Drake May? I think you're just waiting for the best option at that point.
I think that's what you do. Like, and I don't know, but like, I think you're both like, hey, we have these 2 bags for sale. Which one is more expensive that we can sell?
Right. And I think the Falcons are going to be in on either one of those options.
I think they would be. I think they'd be silly not to because they're realistically the Falcons aren't terrible. They're just missing a quarterback and they're missing the opportunity to get these very talented individuals that we just talked about.
And I I don't know why I just thought about this, but I'm thinking about the SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob and Patrick are selling chocolates, and they go to the lady in the wheelchair, and she opens up the door. She's like, "They're selling chocolates,
Chocolates.
chocolates." I imagine that the Falcons are the ones that are like, "Huh?
What are they
Chocolates?"
selling? Yeah, I don't know. First quarter review duds. Jerry Jeudy. I don't want to spend a lot of time on Jerry Jeudy, but I do. I feel bad, man. He's being outdone by Cortland Sutton. And do you know what the really shitty thing is? Is Jerry Jeudy missed his first game. Jerry Jeudy is currently wide receiver 51 on the year. That is terrible. So I just ran some initial numbers on this. If you take out the first week for both Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy still is losing the target share battle. He's got 17.3%, while Sutton through weeks 2 through 4 has a 23.5% target share, and Sutton's currently wide receiver 27. So I just want to pour one out for Jerry Jeudy. He's not getting it done, and I don't know if he will. Like, this offense, I'm going to tell you this. I'm really happy that the Broncos suck. Mm-hmm. I know you probably are too, because you're in that division. I'm so happy that they suck, because I think Sean Payton is a scumbag, and I'm happy that he is failing. He could have went to a bunch of different teams. I'm glad he didn't go to the Cardinals. I might have said otherwise in the past, but I truly am happy that he went to the Broncos. I'm happy that he is failing. And Russell Wilson does not look like he's getting it done for this team. There's a lot of issues with this team, so I don't want to blame it all on Russell Wilson, but I think he certainly has quite a bit of the conversation here to bear for this team's frustrations. And I feel bad for Jerry Jeudy, because he's not doing well, which sucks, because last season he looked like Russell Wilson's go-to guy.
Yep, and unfortunately it's Cortland Sutton at this point, so I'm going to slap your wrist for saying Jerry Jeudy is going to be the wide receiver 1 here. But what's going to be interesting is, do they move Jerry Jeudy before the trade deadline? Because they were trying to get Marvin Mims, who they drafted this year out of Oklahoma, more involved in the offense. So we know there's been a history of Jerry Jeudy trade talks this past offseason. So I'm curious.
Well, and they were like really high on moving Cortland Sutton too. Like, they were like, I legitimately thought Cortland Sutton was going to get moved, and then he didn't. And now it looks like maybe it could be Jerry Jeudy. And I hope it's Jerry Jeudy for anybody who owns Jerry Jeudy, because I don't think he's a bad wide receiver. I think he's just gotten one shit stick after the next in his entire career with the Broncos. So I hope, and that's another guy that could be a trade candidate before this deadline. I don't hate it, because if the Broncos took a 3rd round pick, I think they'd be fine with that to move on from him, because they know they're not going to win anything. They're terrible. All right, that's it for our review, Yeti. Let's move over to the fun, sexy flex appeal, baby. So we are bringing 2 gentlemen to the table for flex conversation this week. And we're going to tell you if you should, which one you should put in your flex position. So not necessarily that. It could be starting, running back or wide receiver, whatever the case is. But these 2 guys are going to pit against each other, and we're going to have a conversation if you should start them. So let's start out with Ramondre Stevenson or Jacoby Myers. So Ramondre Stevenson plays against the Saints, and Jacoby Myers plays against the Packers. So which one of those 2 guys should we flex? Is this question for me, or for how do we want to do this?
It's for you. Okay. But since you read it off to me, I will take the reins on this one, and I'll answer it, and we'll just we'll flip flop. Yeah, okay. I got you. So this is a very gross one, so I'm sorry.
It was disgusting. Yep. That's kind of why I'm happy you're taking this, because I was like, man, don't make me pick between trash and trash.
I got you. I'll bail you out here like I have in the off season and such. But,
wow.
I'm sorry.
We'll
okay.
See.
Anyway, let's get back on track here. Jacoby Myers or Ramondre Stevenson? That is a question here. So as a Raider homer, the easy answer for me is Jacoby Myers. But I'm going to provide you with a little information here. Jim Garoppolo is back this week, which, I fucking hate that. But for Jacoby Myers' fantasy production, that means great news. Last week, obviously, the Raiders played Aiden O'Connell, who was focusing on Devontae Adams like he should be. So Jacoby Myers had a quiet week. I think the volume is going to be there for Jacoby Myers to feast. And it's not like this New England Green Bay secondary is anything to get worried about. I think the game script is going to be in the Raiders' favor here, and Jacoby Myers is the flex option I would like here over Stevenson, who is not getting the job done in New England.
No, and I don't. I think part of it's game script. I mean, obviously the Patriots look like shit. I mean, they do.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Bill Belichick just got handed the worst loss of his career this last week against the Broncos. Mac Jones looks absolutely terrible. Their offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien, has 84 heads, and I don't know if he is able to visually see the game. The Patriots look like shit. I mean, they really do. And Stevenson is hurting because this game script is never in his favor, so he's never really touching the ball a whole lot because they're getting down quickly, and it's difficult for him. So I'd probably also start.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
No,
you
you're
off,
fine.
but something that made Stevenson so valuable last year was the receptions that he was getting out of the backfield too.
Mhm.
And we're not even seeing that this year. And it's
No.
kind of alarming that Ezekiel Elliott is seeing his snap share go up even more, even though we know what Zeke is, and he's past his prime as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he's a really good center for the Cowboys. Yeah. Give me Jacoby Myers. I'll roll with that. The only thing that scares me is I think Stevenson has a safer floor while Myers has a higher ceiling. So do with that information what you will, but I'd probably be willing to start Jacoby Myers over Stevenson. Obviously, I think a lot of people have to probably start Stevenson as a running back. Yeti, are you starting Breece Hall this week or Romeo Doubs? Breece Hall came back this week. He's on. I say come back this week. He's been back, but Jets head coach Robert Saleh has said that Breece Hall's snap count has been removed. So he is no longer on a limited snap count. He should be back to quote unquote 100%. Jets don't look good. Jets haven't looked good, but I'll tell you what, Zach Wilson did look good this last week against the Chiefs, which is still just, I have to wash my mouth with soap after saying that. But I mean, which one are you doing here? Because Romeo Doubs, as we know, wide receiver for the Packers, he's looked pretty good recently. So which one are you taking?
I just want to preface this answer by saying that I'm not buying into the comments that Robert Saleh came out and said about Breece Hall being off a snap count. If you listen to the press conference, Saleh, he kept on going on after saying there wasn't going to be a snap count and said there are other guys we want to get involved in this offense at the running back position. So
there's a little bit, there's a reading between the lines going on.
Yes, exactly. So Breece Hall might not be on a snap count, but how do we know that 45% snap share isn't his role going forward? Because we've seen Dalvin Cook's snap share go down over the past few weeks, as it should, but we've seen Michael Carter's role go up, and they have a rookie named Israel Abanikana. Yeah, I had
great verbiage.
Research.
Great verbiage.
Thanks. I think they want to get him involved as well. So
let me ask you this. If you're not going to buy in on Robert Saleh saying he wants to quote unquote get some of these players more involved, and if we're taking our highlighter out and reading between those lines here that it could be Breece Hall, could I perhaps sell you in the fact that Denver has the worst offense when it comes to allowing rushing yards to the running back position at 176 yards per game?
Yep, and I mean that's exactly why I am playing Breece Hall in this situation. It has more to do with the matchup than anything else. Romeo Doubs, he is a good wide receiver for Green Bay, but I think there are just too many unknowns with this offense, especially with Christian Watson coming back last week. I think they try to ease him into it, and Jordan Love is trying to figure out how to spread the ball out evenly. So I'm not comfortable playing Romeo Doubs. I'd be more comfortable playing Breece Hall because even if he does get 8 carries against this defense, he could take those 8 carries for like 120 yards and a touchdown. Let's be honest. Obviously, Denver's rushing yards per game are kind of inflated thanks to Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert. But last week, Khalil Herbert, he had 20 fantasy points. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry. And then Brian Robinson, a week prior to the Miami game, he had 28 fantasy points, 4.8 yards per carry. So the efficiency is there for Breece Hall to smash, even if he has limited volume. So I'm going Breece.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
I'm also going Breece, by the way. So I'm not going to argue that. The matchup is too great not to start Breece. But if he gets over 15 touches this week, are you back on the Breece train that he will be the main guy going forward, or are you still kind of iffy on him?
I'm selling if he gets 15 carries, and if he goes off this week, I think it's a perfect opportunity to sell high because
and that's why I asked you that question, because
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you. Like this Jets offense does not look like it's going to be stellar, and for that reason, you have the matchup. You have some people who really aren't paying full attention to the full scope of the story here. If Brees Hall has a great week, I would also be trying to sell him. So that's why I asked that question. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hit you with a flex appeal option of mine here.
All
So
right.
I have 2 wide receivers that play each other this week. We have Nico Collins or Drake London.
You already know my feelings. I think when you made this, you probably knew my feelings, and I'm sure you're going to bring to the table some sneaky little Drake London stats, but I'm not doing it. I'm not touching Drake London. I'm taking Nico Collins. This Texans offense looks great, and if I own both these guys and I'm struggling with trying to flex one of them and or start them in a wide receiver role, I can comfortably say if I lose my matchup because I started Nico Collins instead of Drake London, I'm willing to look myself in the mirror and accept that defeat because I still feel comfortable that even if I lost, I made the right choice. So give me Nico Collins.
I don't actually have any stats for you here. I think this is a complete easy decision to make, and Nico Collins is the guy to play, especially based off the matchup here.
Yeah, I honestly, I expect the Texans to do pretty well against the Falcons. I really do. The Texans do not look like a bad team, and I think I don't think they're gonna make a lot of noise this year, but I think they're one of those teams that maybe even as early as next year could really start to make some noise. So they're kind of like the Lions of last year, where like you see the semblance of what this team is working towards and achieving, and it gets you a little excited. So that's kind of where I put the Texans at right now. And Nico Collins, I'd be starting him this week. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to you, my friend. This is a fun one. This is a good one. This is one that I think it's gross. It's not great, but that's why I brought it to the table. Jameson Williams, wide receiver for the Lions, who just came back this week. He was actually suspended for the first 6 weeks of the NFL season due to gambling violations. And then the NFL changed their gambling violation rules to a 4-week suspension. So he is now able to come back early. He was a rookie last year that was drafted in the first round. We never really got to see him play because he tore his ACL in the collegiate championship game. So he came back at the very end of the season, was not used, was not available, and now for the first time in his career, after a year and some change of sitting around doing nothing, he is finally going to be on the field this week. And then you got Michael Wilson, who is the wide receiver for the Cardinals. He's a very hot waiver wire pickup this week. Honestly, both these guys are probably waiver wire pickups for a lot of people this week. Jameson Williams playing the Panthers. Michael Wilson is playing the Bengals. Michael Wilson is starting to look like he could be something. He might not be. He could not be, but he might be. So you have a guy who hasn't played in a year and a half, and you have Michael Wilson, rookie wide receiver for a really bad team. Who are you starting, my friend?
Oh... It was very hard for me to make this decision because I'm trying not to look at the lens of what have you done for me lately, and seeing Michael. Yeah, what could you do? It's honestly, when I think about Jameson Williams coming back, I am excited to see what he can do in this offense. But I think coming off of his suspension, his role is going to be very limited. And if you look at what Carolina's pass defense has done lately, they have been stopping wide receiver twos. I mean, even last week, Justin Jefferson still had 18 points, right? But he was limited per, what we've grown to expect from Justin Jefferson at this point, right?
And Carolina, they actually have the 6th ranked best pass defense at the moment.
Exactly.
So
teams are finding success against them on the ground.
Yes.
So I tend to think that Detroit just going to try to pound the rock. This is a copycat league. Detroit's going to pound it with Demont, call it a day. So with that being said, I think Michael Wilson is a guy to play. And I want to add some stats here that kind of back me a little bit. So on average, Josh Dobbs is throwing the ball 31 times per game. So the volume is going to be there and the game script should be there. I think this is going to be a competitive game, which is sad to say.
Yeah,
it's sad to say
absurd.
with the Bengals, right? But I think they are going to have to throw the ball to win this game because the Bengals secondary is beat up. They've been allowing a lot of yards over the middle. And where does Michael Wilson feast? It's over the middle. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you look at the numbers for all rookie wide receivers, he has the highest average depth of target. So whenever he's getting looks, he has the highest yardage, and he has the most air yards for rookie wide receivers at this point. So with that being said, even if he catches 3 of his 7 targets, he's probably going to have 90 yards and a touchdown. I'm going to take that upside all day.
All right, I agree with you. Which is painstaking to say because I've been excited for Jameson Williams. I love Dan Campbell. I'm really rooting for the Lions. Michael Wilson, I think the opportunity is there for him this week. But I still think Williams is a great own. Don't get me wrong. I just wouldn't feel comfortable starting him this week. I want to see him do some stuff before I really start to get excited about it. So give me Michael Wilson. Everybody who is currently watching us, greatly do appreciate it. We are almost done with this Flex Appeal, and we will get your questions here. They have been flowing in like crazy Yeti, so we have a lot of questions. So if you're watching us over on YouTube, we're about to get to them. So stay tuned. It is coming soon. But we got to finish this Flex Appeal.
All right. For my last Flex Appeal, we got Hollywood Brown, your boy here, versus Cincinnati, or running back from Washington, Brian Robinson versus Chicago. Yeah, no, I really like that you brought this to the table. It's a hard one.
It is hard. No, it really is hard. Because Hollywood Brown is the wide receiver 1 for the Cardinals, and then Michael Wilson, who we just talked about, is the wide receiver 2 for them. So Brian Robinson has looked great as a running back own this year so far. This is tough. It really is because I think the Bengals-Cardinals game is actually going to be very competitive, like you just mentioned. I think if I had to choose, and they're both middle of the pack as far as defenses are concerned, so I want to kind of bring that to the table as well. Chicago has an all right. They don't have the best, run-stopping defense, and Bengals don't have the best pass-catching stopping defense. That was terrible verbiage, but you get what I mean. I think I got to start Hollywood Brown. I think I'm starting Hollywood Brown. I think this game is going to be close. I think that if at the worst the Cardinals are down, they're going to be looking to throw the ball. I think there is a world in which I don't think the Commanders are good. I don't think the Bears are good at all. And so that game also could be pretty competitive. But if the Bears don't shape up, they could also be down in this game quite a bit too. And then the Commanders could run the ball. I'm going to take Hollywood Brown. He's looked pretty good, and I think that he's going to get targets by Dobbs quite often. I mean, I don't know what his target share is, but he's wide receiver 17 on the year. He's seen over 30 targets in the last 4 weeks. I don't have the stats in front of me to look at the target share.
I think if it's a PPR league, the easy answer is Hollywood Brown. If you're playing in a standard or even half PPR, I'm going to go towards Brian Robinson. And I say that because Brian Robinson, he's controlling the snap share for Washington. If you look at games that are in positive or neutral game script, he is the running back that gets all the snaps. He's a running back 1. Obviously, against Buffalo, Antonio Gibson saw most of the work, but he is their pass catching back. Brian Robinson has seen 12 red zone carries so far. So if Washington can get inside of the red zone, you can almost guarantee Brian Robinson is going to see the workload towards the goal line. So love that for half PPR and for standard leagues. But if it's PPR, I'm going Hollywood.
Okay. Sign me up. We only play in PPR leagues. You should only play in PPR leagues because that's what real men and women do. Last Flex Appeal. Another kind of gross one.
Damn it.
Jerry, I know. I'm sorry.
You just brought like all your guys.
Yeah, I was like, Yeti, can you set my lineup for me?
Yeah.
No, I looked around the league and I was trying to find some guys that people actually did have on their benches and had on the same teams. Now everybody drafts a little bit differently, but I want to truly try and bring some flex people to this conversation and the table because that's where we're at. That's what this segment is. And also I kind of like the idea of flex appeal, sex appeal kind of thing. So it just kind of plays together.
Very flexy, baby.
Yeah, baby. So Jerry Jeudy's playing against the New York Jets, which is arguably one of the hardest defenses to go against in the NFL. And then you have Jahan Dotson going against the Bears, as we mentioned, Brian Robinson's team as well. So which one are you taking?
I want to have some fun here because I know Scotty poked a little fun at the two of us for Christian McCaffrey on Monday's episode. So,
he did.
I had read somewhere on leatherbrains.com over the offseason that, in reference to Jahan Dotson and Scary Terry, that we're looking at a 1A, 1B situation. And this person who wrote the article was betting on Dotson to finish as an A.
It's not happening.
Oh,
It's not happening.
Oh,
I can't talk. I can't sit here and talk shit.
Yeah,
I can't,
I don't know who
'cause
wrote that. I think it was one of our Leather Brains writers.
I think it was.
I
think it was.
But at this point, I think it was kind of wrong. So
Well.
sorry. Anywho,
So with that, you're taking Jerry Jeudy.
So I want to say for both of these guys, the matchups are terrible, and the volume share is terrible for both of these guys. But I'm gonna go with the lesser of two evils here and say Jahan Dotson. I think that's the easy answer.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, not only is he not getting the wide receiver 1 target share, but he also is not. He's going against the Jets defense, and that defense is no joke. Like, it's a really good defense. So, yeah, it's Jahan Dotson for me, which sucks because the Broncos are probably going to be down. So you expect them to throw the ball more, and that creates opportunity for Jerry Jeudy. It really does. When the Broncos were losing 20-70, that starting offense was still on the field. So take it for what it's worth. But I'm starting Jahan Dotson. I'm just not going to deal with the scary headache that it is. But that's all we have for the flex appeal. So let's get over to our Brainbusters.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. Mail!
Is that good timing?
That's my favorite part of this episode.
Oh, that's my favorite part of every episode. I just get to do the Blues Clues thing. First question comes from the Dynasty Guy, a.k.a. Chris Norman. He is in a Dynasty Superflex League. Which side wins? James Cook and Garrett Wilson or Breece Hall and Brandon Ayuk? His other running backs are Najee, Barkley, Robinson, and White. I believe the side that he is looking to acquire is Breece Hall and Brandon Ayuk.
Oh man, this is really tough for me.
He asked this, and I originally thought this was a redraft league, and I thought it was a pretty easy question.
Yeah,
and then I realized it was a dynasty league, and then I was like, whoa, wait, don't take what I said as because if this is a redraft league, I think Breece Hall and Brandon Ayuk side is kind of where I'm at because Garrett Wilson is playing with Zach Wilson, and I think this year is kind of a bust for him. And then James Cook is actually doing really great, but I think with all the other running backs you have, I think you're okay. So now you get into the conversation of this is a dynasty league, and Zach Wilson's not a long-term quarterback. So there's a whole conversation that needs to happen there.
And then Aaron Rodgers isn't a long-term option either.
Correct. So are you banking on the running back? Or are you banking on the wide receiver?
I'm going to go James Cook and Garrett Wilson here.
Okay.
I think you have to take the upside wide receiver here with Garrett Wilson. Not that Brandon Ayuk isn't. Yeah, I'm gonna.
I think no. I think I'm gonna do the same thing because James Cook is certainly proving that he is the running back for this team, and they are feeling confident with him. I think Breece Hall's has a higher upside to be better, but I think you can comfortably start James Cook still, and you won't be disappointed in it. And Garrett Wilson's a better wide receiver than Ayuk, so I agree with you. I think that's what I would go with as well.
All right.
Next question comes from the Bush Mush. I love that name. That is incredible. He asked, would you trade Amon-Ra St. Brown for Breece Hall in a redraft league?
No. Why? Why would you even consider that?
What if he needs running back help? Breece Hall's news came out today, Yeti, that his snap count is now not limited anymore. He's going to see 7,000 touches a game.
No. Please don't buy into the hype.
Don't do this.
Please, God, no. Don't do this. I know Amon St. Brown hasn't had that 30-point game or 40-point game this year. But I promise it's coming. He's coming, Mr. Baby. Consistent. And if you really need a running back, go get somebody else. Don't go get Breece Hall.
Don't do this to us. Don't do this to yourself.
Yes.
Don't do it. Okay. Next question comes from the Motion Man. He's 1-3. I'm sorry to hear that. If you were listening to us all season, maybe you wouldn't be. Hit subscribe. Thank you. In a 10-man PPR league, he received an offer of David Montgomery and Tyler Lockett for Ramondre Stevenson and Jerry Jeudy. So would you accept it? I would say yes. I would accept that. I would get David Montgomery and Tyler Lockett and trade away Stevenson and Jerry Jeudy. You agree?
Easy.
Okay. Yep, do that. Next question comes from T-Money Reacts. He said, should I trade Josh Jacobs and Chris Olave for Bijan? I tried to do Jacobs and Ridley, but he doesn't want Ridley. Ooh, that's
what are
expensive.
we working with here? Like,
That's
if
expensive.
it's dynasty,
It's an 8-team PPR redraft league.
no, I wouldn't bother with it.
Yeah, I think that the issue for the Falcons is I think they're going to be playing down, and I don't even want to make that argument. I just wouldn't do it. I think that's giving too much for Bijan.
Exactly.
Next question. Aaron Cass says, "Is Zach Taylor a fraud?"
He's a Nebraska boy, so I can't dog him.
Yeah,
I think it's more of the offensive line and Joe Burrow. I think they're having issues with health, obviously, and it's showing. Joe Burrow isn't making those long throws anymore like he was to Jamar Chase. In fact, Joe Burrow is only averaging 4.7 yards per pass attempt at this point.
You seem kind of happy when you said that. Like, I looked at your face and you like seem genuinely like like a little snicker. I don't know why, but it seemed really mean. I don't think Zach Taylor's a fraud. He's a Nebraska boy, and so are we. But it certainly is not looking like a great year for him, and I don't think he has all that blame to carry. Next question. Squishy Ducky, which player would you most like to have dinner with? I have mine.
You go first.
Current player, Jason Kelce. I think Jason Kelce might be my favorite NFL, currently active NFL player. I don't know how to word that. I'm losing my mind. It's got to be Jason Kelce. Dude, he just seems like such a genuine guy. Like, he just seems like a dude's dude. Like, he's someone that, like, I'm going to go eat burgers with. We're going to have a bunch of beers. We're going to fuck around, and then we're going to stumble our way home. He doesn't seem like he's flashy. He doesn't seem like he's trying to put on a show. He doesn't want to be in front of the, like, I mean, obviously he does things to be in front of the camera, but he just seems like a normal guy. It would be Jason Kelce for me.
I think I'm going to go with Tua. I'd be really curious just to see what exactly is going on in his mind. Like if
it's still there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what kind of conversation can he have with me at this point? Like, is he just like a X's and O's type guy and that's all he knows? Like, he's programmed to talk about football on that.
It's like a robot.
It's like, you're asking me about life. Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Well, also he's going to eat left-handed, and that kind of freaks me out. So, next question. Thank you, Squishy Dougie, for the question. Next question comes from, it's Aaron Cass again. Best running backs to trade for when I have Alexander Madison as my running back 1. I'm sorry you have Alexander Madison as your running back 1. That sucks. I'm trying to think of guys who aren't as expensive but could provide higher upside. I think James Cook is one of those guys. I don't know if you can pry him away from the owner, but hasn't had like a boom week where he's put up 40 points. So I think he's a decent target. Brian Robinson, David Montgomery's another one. Yeah. Just because the Jahmyr Gibbs' name carries value. Kenneth Walker, perhaps, but I don't know if you're going to be able to get him either. Maybe look at those guys. See
Kamara, maybe.
He's just somebody that there's not
in
a lot
a
of
PPR league. I like the idea of getting Kamara just because Derek Carr is kind of limited as to what he can do with that AC joint.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
I don't know what the price would be on Kamara, though, at this point.
That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Yeah. Do some shopping. Look around. Whenever you're doing a trade, and this is for anybody who is actively looking to do trades in fantasy football, the very first thing you should do is go scout around at team needs for other people and see what you're willing to sell. So, like in one of my leagues, for example, I have DK Metcalf. I'm looking to sell him. I don't need him. I don't want him. DK Metcalf is my flex wide receiver, which is a good problem to have, but I don't need him, and I'm looking to buy a running back. So what I do is I'm going around looking at all the other league mates and saying, who has some other running backs that they could live without, and that would be very excited to own DK Metcalf. So whenever you're doing trades, that's what you kind of need to look for, is look at teams to target to trade that will benefit both parties. Squishy Ducky asks one more question. He says, does Cole Kmet have another big game against Washington?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't want to say last week was a fluke with Justin Fields, but I'm going to need to see more of that because he didn't get it done with his legs, obviously, which is great to see that he's able to throw the ball. But like I said, it was the Broncos. Like, prove it to me.
Yeah.
Let's see it again.
I agree.
I think he has a good matchup with Washington, but
yeah,
I want to see it.
I mean, tight end's gross in general. If you're not starting Andrews or Kelsey, then you're kind of playing matchups anyway, so I guess I wouldn't hate it, but I wouldn't expect it either. Next question comes from Kyle Grove in a full PPR format. Who would you rather have rest of the season, DJ Moore or Deebo Samuel? Yeah. This is disgusting, Kyle. I appreciate your question, and I even appreciate more that you've hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, but this is gross.
So I'll take the reins on it because it's gross. Deebo.
Yeah,
bingo.
It's Deebo. Yeah.
Deebo.
The problem with DJ Moore is not DJ Moore. It's Matt Eberflus. It's Justin Fields. It's not DJ himself. It's Deebo. Deebo's the guy. Deebo is the guy I would rather own. Next question comes from Benguin02YT. Interesting name. He's 1-3. Sorry to hear that. Some of us are. He's in a 10-team PPR league. He has Jerome, Ford, and Godwin and White on bye. He has to start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. He's got Josh Jacobs, Khalil Herbert, McLaughlin, Ramondre Stevenson, T. Higgins, Christian Watson, Garrett Wilson, Chase, and A.J. Brown. Also, Waller or Ertz. You're playing Ertz. If you have not heard any of our other shows, I live on a tower that is Zach Ertz. You start Ertz. Ertz, just a little sprinkle for something. If you're not following us, go follow us over on Instagram and Twitter because something's coming out tomorrow that a lot of people might find interesting about tight ends.
Wide receivers are very easy for me. It's got to be Jamar Chase and A.J. Brown. Why would you bench them?
Yeah, no, you have to start them.
I understand that Chase has been disappointing, but you don't want to risk that.
No,
he has
you don't.
30, 40-point upside on any given week, even with a broken Joe Burrow.
Agreed. You start both those guys. Running backs, I would start. Who is the Raiders playing again?
They are playing Green Bay.
I'd probably start Josh Jacobs.
Yes, easy. Volume play is Josh Jacobs.
I'm not sold on McLaughlin.
Nope. So I
Stevenson?
would lean. I would lean Herbert.
Would
here. You? Yeah. That's how far off Stevenson has kind of fallen.
That's gross. I mean, Herbert's only done it for 1 week, and it was against Denver.
Yeah, but they go up against Washington. I think he has a better matchup than New England does, who goes up against the Saints, who kind of have a very stout run defense. And with Zeke taking more of the workload, Stevenson doesn't do it for me anymore.
Okay. Well, then there you have it. He asked one more question. Should he trade Jamar Chase and Ramondre for Bijan and Puka? My answer, yes.
If you can.
Yeah, I would do that. I would do that in a heartbeat. Next question comes from, Alan Castro. What up, baby? Welcome in. Appreciate your question. He said, I saw you on TikTok. You were hating on Taylor Swift. Care to comment? My comment is this. I said what I said, and I have no regrets. If you didn't know, we're on TikTok. We're making reels. We're doing fun things. We're on Instagram. We're everywhere. We are everywhere that there is media. And we did. And the TikTok is actually blowing up quite a bit about how I made some comments about Taylor Swift. I stand by what I said. I don't care about Taylor Swift at the NFL games. I think it's fine, but I think for her and Travis's relationship, it's getting blown way out of proportion.
It's not on her though.
Well, it's no, it's not. And I'm not talking shit. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about Taylor. I'm not talking shit on Taylor Swift as a person. I'm talking shit on the NFL constantly pivoting to go watch her eat nachos. That's what I have a problem with. Like, I don't give a shit about that. I'd rather watch football, talk about football. Don't talk about her newest album while she's sitting next to Kelsey, shoving food down her face, sitting next to Blake Lively. I don't care. Next question comes from, and I think this is the last one, Fletcher Cox. Wow, Fletcher, I didn't know Fletcher Cox listened to this podcast. Thank you so much. Hey. Should I trade Derrick Henry and Tua Tagovailoa for Ramondre Stevenson and Anthony Richardson? No.
What are your other running backs?
That's the question at hand. He's in a 12-man PPR league. I'm going to say no. Just knowing what I know in this instance, no. I think Tua has a lot of upside throwing the ball. Obviously, Richardson does run at the ball, but if I had to pick between Derrick Henry or Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard's his other running back. I would keep Henry.
Yeah. I think Tua can match Anthony Richardson on any given week, and then Derrick Henry. If you look at his playoff schedule, he has Houston twice, and he has historically put up huge numbers against Houston. So if you can hold on to Henry, please do.
Yes. I I saw someone say Ramondre was a good buy low.
Not with the way that offense looks, to be honest with you.
No, I've always tried to stay away from the Patriots offense, and that has not changed this year, so I wouldn't be. But you know what, Fletcher Cox? You're a grown man or woman, I guess. I don't know. I would assume Fletcher is a grown or a man's name, but either way, that's what I would do.
Love watching you play on Sundays, Fletcher.
Yeah, you're doing great, buddy. Okay, one more question. We're going to get out of here. This comes from Benguin02YT. Again, he says, Shroud, Zach Wilson, or Russell Wilson, or Purdy this week. I'm assuming that's Stroud. And if that is, in fact, Stroud, I forget who the Texans
They play Atlanta.
Yeah, give me CJ Stroud.
Yep. That's an easy one.
Yeah. Okay, Yeti. That's it. Appreciate all your questions. If you guys want to hit subscribe, mean the world. We're doing this every Monday and Wednesday. Welcome to Leather Brains. You hit the subscribe, you're officially a Brainiac. And if you are listening on the podcast the following day and you're not following us on these platforms, you need to go do it because you're missing out on good quality content that could help you win these fantasy games without having to listen to the podcast all the time. And that's it. Yeti, appreciate you joining me. Appreciate you doing this with me. It's been fun. It's been real, but we're out of time.
Good luck, Brainiacs. We are.
I always say we. You're killing this. We'll do it again. We
are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.